And ideally, now they can hear us the same way I start every stream, is talking out loud the actions I'm taking in OBS. What's up, everybody? Please give us a little wave in the chat if you can see us, if you can hear us, if the audio levels are okay. I always know it's a thing. All you rats say hello so we can hear you too.
Hello.
Yeah, love it.
Hello.
Hello.
Right up top, wow, we have so many first-time chatters. If this is your first time joining our stream, welcome. We are so happy to have you here. We are the Riot Animation Team, or some of the Riot Animation Team, the RAT, the RAT. And we like to do these streams, I like to say every month, although it's usually every month and a half, and even then, we really need to be more consistent. That's on me, but we're here now, and that's what's important. With one of the most exciting streams I think we've done in a long time, Fresh Rats. And I'll talk about what that means in a second. But before we do that, why not have a little bit of a tiny intro from everyone? Who wants to kick it off? Dive right in. Anyone?
Let's do it. Okay. Yeah, I'll kick it off. Hi, I'm John DeFon. I'm an animation artist too on the League of Legends Pi skins team, and I work on cool skins for League. That's what I do.
I can go next. So hello, I'm Kailey, and I'm animation artist too in Valorant team. So I'm also working in the gun skin team. So I'm pretty making like super cool gun skin, for the Valorant. So hello, guys.
Hello, my name's Aharonit, and I'm an animator too on League of Legends skins also. Happy to be here.
Hi. I don't have a camera on today, so you can't see my pretty bearded face, but I'm also a animator on Pi, and I'm an animation artist one working on the Strike team for League of Legends skins. Yeah.
Hello, I am On. I am currently on the Valorant team as an animation artist too. And right now I'm on the characters team doing animation for agents.
Hi there, I'm Elena, and I am currently an animation intern on the League of Legends skins team.
Wonderful. And finally, my name is Lana Bashinsky. I am an associate art director working in R&D at Riot Games. I'm also your MC for this evening and for most of the other Rat streams. And I'm so excited to be here. We are here with Fresh Rats. You might have seen it in the tweet. You might have seen it in our Discord. Both of those things linked up above. But Fresh Rats, these with me here today are our newest animators at Riot Games. They arrived the soonest. Who has been here the longest even? John? JT?
Probably John?
John?
Probably me and Aharonit. We got hired at the same time, I want to say, in December 5th, 2022. That was our first day.
So 6 months is the most tenure of this crew, which means what? You have the freshest possible knowledge to give these fine folks in the chat who might want to either be an animator, are about to go through an interview process, or might specifically want to work with us here at Riot Games. So a little rundown on what we're going to do. All of these rats have brought with them their demo reel that they use to apply for their job at Riot, as well as other possible interview materials, tests that they did, and we're going to sort of roll through it and chat about it. Please, if you have any questions, post them in the chat. We're not going to get to all of them immediately, but we are saving time at the end for AMA. And if your question is really, 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 really good, I'll consider asking it earlier. But I will be copy and pasting them all, so we will get to it. Please tag me at Rat Animators in the chat so I can see your question. Otherwise, I might miss it. And without much further ado, I think we can dive in. We didn't discuss an order, though. Who wants to go first?
I guess we can kind of just go off the list on our thing.
All
Actually,
right.
I'll go first.
I
I
was gonna
talked
say,
first,
get
so I guess that makes sense. Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah.
No, I'm
Cool.
gonna be first.
Oh.
All right, John, you're taking the reins here because you spoke first, and that's how it works. Let me tell you.
Good. What
I
have I
know
done?
that's how it goes. So I've got us on the two pane here. You can drive. Are we all in this? Oh, I have to join the sync first quickly. There we go. And so take us to your reel.
Absolutely. Yeah. Here's my reel. I am gonna preemptively turn down the audio because there's music in it. Without further ado, this is the reel that I use to apply to Riot Games with.
Should we watch it? Yeah.
There it is.
Woo!
Yay!
Yeah. So do we want to move into the test after this, or do we kind of want to go through sort of my process for how I crafted my reel?
What do you want to do, John?
We're on our reel. We might as well go through kind of what I was thinking. What was
Yeah.
going through my noggin as I was putting all this all together. Also, thank you so much to everyone in the chat. I really appreciate all the nice words. Yeah, so let me turn off the music. Yeah, basically, a lot of what I had used for this reel was actually from my previous position, which I think was something that kind of gave me a little bit of an advantage. Was I actually had work that was already like in a game, already in a MOBA, specifically, and so I think that already was kind of a helpful sort of step forward in sort of fitting with league style, just off the bat. But even without that, I think that there is still sort of like a logic to kind of what pieces I chose for this. So first, I guess like for my little title card, this
Okay.
little spinny thing.
Can I ask you one quick question, John? When you say logic
Yeah.
behind this, did you create this reel specifically to apply at Riot?
Um, I guess not specifically for Riot. Kind of to give context, I mean, I like Riot was probably one of like the only things that I had applied for during that period of time. So I think it just like happens to fit a lot with a lot of what Riot wanted out of a demo reel as well. Um, because I'll kind of get into it as I go along. Yeah, so I think the number one thing, and this might have been why you had asked that, is because there's a lot of really cartoony stuff in this reel, and I know at Riot specifically, they really do a lot of exaggeration in a lot of the movements of characters. At least from a lot of my research, like a lot of game studios will be like, oh yeah, like if you have motion capture, that'll fit really well. But I really don't know how far motion capture will take you in Riot. I think everything here is really stylized, really hand keyed. So thankfully, I had a reel full of work that was all stylized and hand keyed. So that helped me out a lot. I want to say, but yeah, even beyond that, yeah. So starting out, this really cartoony, expressive piece. This was to kind of just show like this. I feel like this piece specifically. This is Toon Baron from Smite. It kind of was like one of the pieces that really showed what I really like to do as an animator personally. Just doing some really goofy, wacky hijinks, and that's the same for this end piece with Toon Cthulhu. So I kind of wanted to start and end on that note of just this really exaggerated, really stretchy, cartoony work. Is also really expressive. This one is really fun just because like I had the chance to explore so many different characters. So you have like Wild Wild West and Cool Dude Cthulhu. So yeah, that was super fun. Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to bookend, I guess, my reel with. But then beyond that, I really wanted to kind of get into a little bit more reeled back because I know I could do super cartoony stuff, but hey, can you actually like animate a person that's a little bit more in the realm of realism? And so I had this piece with Lancelot, and this one's multiple things. So it's like, yeah, there's Lancelot himself, and he uh, moves a little bit more realistically, but still stylized because he's like jumping and doing all these crazy things, getting on the horse or whatever. But yeah, and then there's like the horse itself as well. That was a whole other thing that I thought would be good to show my reel. It's like I can animate humans, but I could also animate horses. And I can animate humans getting on top of horses even. And then the other thing that I wanted to show with this piece as well was a little bit of the, I guess, like cinematic side of like my animations because there's a little bit of like camera movement here. Like he's in the air at this point. It's like jumping a little bit more cool cinematic stuff. But yeah, and then kind of right after that is just showing a little bit of my creature work. So some mind flayer from Stranger Things. Just showing, yeah, how I could animate some weird stuff, I guess. I guess this is sort of to show like, yeah, like if there's some wild, crazy rig with like 6 legs, like a big meat monster rig, I could do that. Yeah, and then right after that, I get into showing some of my gameplay animations. And yeah, this is just sort of to show like, yeah, I can actually work with a game engine. It's not just like I can make pretty pieces. I can also make pretty pieces that work inside of a game, and that's super valuable because it basically kind of I guess it's sort of like my process for making this was kind of just like answering a lot of the questions that people might have about me as an animator. Like, oh, can he actually work in a game though? Well, yeah, he can. He's doing it there. So, yeah. So I had that. Had Azula over here. I like this animation just because it's interesting having her sort of like struggle and like restricted with her hands tied behind her back. Thought it was pretty expressive. So yeah, had that. Shiva over here, doing some cool dances. He also has 4 arms, so unique character. So I'm also trying to like be wary of time too. Yeah, this one I thought was a good one to include. Because this one, Atlas, he's really grounded in reality, and so this was one that I wanted to show. Like I can animate different like weight shifts and things like that. So he's sort of like struggling to lift up the globe on his shoulder because the globe is really heavy. So yeah, JT, what's up?
Yeah, how I was just curious. Since you have such a large body of work, I had 2 questions. How long would you say this covers of your animation career, like the pieces you have in here?
Yeah, for sure. So this is about, I want to say just under 2 years of animation experience. So that's another thing too, I kind of want to mention with my reel. I think that my reel is definitely a little bit geared more towards something a mid-level animator would present. If you're just getting started in the industry, I definitely think mine's a little bit on the longer side when it comes to the kinds of reels that you would see, I guess. But I mostly made it this way. I think there is something to say about like the purposefulness of the pieces in this reel. Like this is definitely like the limit of the amount of stuff that I want to do in my reel. just because, I think that like there was enough for me to show that also wasn't redundant. Like there were a lot of different victory and defeat animations that I could have included in my reel, but I felt like these were the ones that were the most distinct and were the most, I guess, emblematic of my skill level. So yeah, I think that just about covers all of my demo reel and all of my thoughts kind of going into it.
That's awesome. I really appreciate your thoughts about like what you're considering putting in your reel. So even if it's on the longer side, like I've seen a lot of reels that are like 3-4 minutes long, but it is like, oh, there's 15 different walk cycles in there. And it's like, oh yeah, that could be like really cut out. So I feel like your approach to why it's long is capturing these different pieces and all of them are serving a like distinct purpose in your application. We love to hear it. We love to hear it.
Well, thank you so much.
We did get one specific question in chat for you from Michael. The name I
Right.
always never know how to say, but we will probably ask that a little later. I just wanted to let them know I got your questions, everybody. Keep them coming. Thank you.
Sure.
Did you have an art test, John?
I did. Did I, or do we want to answer this question, or are we saving that for later?
We'll save it for later. I'm mostly saying,
Cool.
chat, I see you, and I got your questions. I'm copying them. We'll get to them. Stick around.
Cool. All right. Then I guess we could just move right on to the art test. So this was my animation test that I did for Riot. Bit of context behind this. I had about 2.5, I think 3-ish weeks. They were really understanding, which is very nice because I was also working a full-time job in the midst of doing this. And so they were able to extend it slightly, which was very cool of them to do. But yeah, this is my animation test that I did. It's a Surfer Draven. So cool.
That's very, very, very good test.
Thank you.
I can see why you work here.
I suppose.
So do you want to give a little context into the test itself? This is intended to be a recall, yeah?
Yeah. So this is basically, recall for just a skin in League of Legends. I don't think they specifically said a skin. Basically, you had the choice between, I want to say like maybe 4 or 5 characters. And one of them was Draven, and he seemed like a character. I looked at like all their personalities, and he seemed like a really fun, a really weird and wacky dude. But I liked his personality a lot, and he also seemed very not crazy complex. I think like his blades are the most like complex thing. So I was kind of just thinking like I have like a limited amount of time. I want to make sure I'm maximizing it and I'm not just doing freaking secondary all day every day. So yeah, for this, I mean, kind of my process. I made a bit of a doc, so I'm sort of gonna read alongside this. So my process, I guess I kind of started just looked at a bunch of the recalls from League of Legends to kind of get an idea of what I guess what skins are doing in that game. Another thing I did too, I actually watched these streams a whole lot. I think there was like a stream specifically also talking about art tests, and so I just watched that and I took a lot of notes. And I
A
was
rat
like, okay,
stream?
a rat stream, yeah. So it's a bit of a Ouroboros of rats happening here. Yeah. Um, I basically like I think like the first like day, it's just like all research, just sort of getting an idea of the personality, getting an idea of like, okay, what can I actually like do within like the League of Legends engine? What have other people done, and like trying to hit something in a similar vein, but I'm also not gonna like copy someone else's thing because that's not how creativity works. So yeah, basically from there, what I wanted to do with this was kind of, because I was applying for the skins team, I kind of wanted to sort of create like a skin line idea in my head. And so I came up with this sort of like cyberpunk kind of skin line. And this would sort of be like hoverboard like blade kind of a thing. Like it'd be a blade when he like slashes out, but it'd also be like a hoverboard when he like chooses it to be, when it wills it, when it happens. So yeah, and then after that, I messed around with the rig. Just did a couple of poses to sort of get myself familiar, how things work, and yeah, then I just sort of did the animation. Started out with like a stepped pass. That blade was a really wild thing to work with. Let me tell you. Because previously I actually didn't use Maya in my last position, and so rotation works very differently in this program. I was soon to find out. So, but yeah.
By
And
differently,
then
do you mean works badly?
a little bit. I mean, like for what I wanted to do with it, I think it was just it was something that I wasn't used to, I guess. But then I got used to it. And yeah, I guess like that's sort of my test process. I can get into more specifics if there are any specific questions. I see JT's got a hand up.
Yeah, I was just curious, for you with this animation, is there anything now being on Skin's team that you would improve about this? And also, how difficult was the art test for you?
Um, I wouldn't say it was kind of difficult. It was pretty difficult when it comes to like just getting him on that dang blade. I mean, I had a certain process to go about it. Like basically, I had I just kind of figured out the motion path of the blade first, and sort of gotten like rough poses, and then I sort of constrained the feet onto the blade, and then kind of just work from there in terms of making sure that things don't like spin in on each other. And I definitely had to make a lot of adjustments. Like I think initially I had the blade spin like so many times, and Draven was just like flashing all over the place, like just spinning nonstop. And I'm like, this isn't cohesive. I can't see what's going on. Uh, and yeah, I think in my original pass too, I had him go like all over the place, and then I'm like, wait, this is a game. I need to keep him in a grid. And so, luckily, Anim Layers kind of saved my butt there, and I was able to kind of restrain his movements. I definitely think like nowadays, like he definitely moves a little bit like too vertical than he actually can in League. I think like in Engine, I think he's moving a bit too high up. But I know that they like value verticality, and that's probably something that I could like adjust in an anim layer, sort of in retrospect. And plus, I think the point of the art test too, because I think I was also like when I was initially doing the art test, I was very worried about like technical limitations. But I was encouraged often to be creative with it, and I think that's sort of the good mentality to have in your art test because, yeah, you're just showing who you are mostly as an artist, and then you'll kind of learn technical stuff in the job itself.
Word.
Yeah.
Well, John, thank you so much. There are definitely a couple questions in the chat for you. I'm going to stick to one that's very specific to you, and then the rest I'll sort of save for the AMA section after everybody presents. And I'll sort of paraphrase this from Michael. What's the process like for animating characters from Smite? Did you find that it helped you, like getting it to Riot? Was it a similar process once you got here?
Yes and no. I think definitely because yeah, there was a big difference when it comes to the programs that we had used. We had 3D Studio Max in Smite. We use Maya in Riot, and so it's a whole different workflow. But it's similar, right? So like, yeah, I think in terms of like the game fundamentals, I think that was a pretty similar process. I think yeah. In terms of applying it to League, like it was interesting applying that to a sort of like a 3/4 kind of perspective because I'm used to in Smite just animating to make it look good from the back because that's mostly all you'll see the character in is sort of this like just I don't know how you'd put it, like it's not like quite 3/4. It's basically like just the cameras in the back of the character. So Yeah. I'd say like definitely when it comes to animating for Riot, I definitely rely a lot more on the sort of like the stepped key animation. That's definitely what I did for this test as well, and I definitely feel a lot more comfortable with that workflow. Back in my old position, there wasn't. It was basically like everything was on spline all the time, and I got used to it. But I think it's definitely like preferable to have the ability to sort of like go back into steps because I think that personally gives me a better sense of timing in my animations. I think it's also good to like sell ideas as well, and to also just kind of like get really early passes and yeah, kind of that kind of helps me out a little bit too. But I think yeah, for the most part, like when it comes to the sort of general gameplay fundamental stuff, I mean Smite and League have very like similar sort of I guess sort of setups for their gameplay. Like you have like spells, you have the auto attacks and things like that. So I think that was a pretty easy transition for me personally coming into the position.
Awesome. John, thank you so much. One of our
Thank
freshest
you.
rats here. Our oldest, freshest rat. Can we get rats in the chat for John? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody.
All right. All right. Who's next?
I would love to go next. I think my reel in art test compared to John's is going to be a huge contrast. So I'd love to show that to everybody. Yeah. So I can just drive, I guess, in Sync Sketch.
Yes. Is there
Okay.
audio in your demo reel?
Nope. There is no audio.
Ooh, all
Nope,
right.
so good.
Contrast indeed. Take it away, JT.
Okay, cool. So yeah, this is my reel. I submitted this fall of 2022. I've been working at Riot since February, so about 4 months, 3 months, 4 months, fresh off the boat, super fresh off the boat. And my experience is very different. As you can see, my reel is a nice 40 seconds or something. And nothing is in game either, which is very, very different than John's reel. But yeah, my complete like dev experience is very different. I came from a very different game. I worked in the mobile game space before coming to Riot, and I worked in a bone-based system. I did 3D animation a lot in college, but when I got to my studio position, we worked in like a 2D engine. So a lot of my 3D stuff was self-study and going to like a night school and things like that. And right before coming to Riot, I had attended a night school for about a year. Shout out to Kyosel Academy if anybody wants to check them out. They're actually having a thing right now. But anyways, yeah. So I'll show my art test as well, but I can talk about my reel a little bit as I just played in the background. So yeah, I'm not gonna go as in depth as John. I don't really think there's like a lot of cool stuff to see. So I feel like a lot of people in the RAS community are like this as well, where like you're a connoisseur of demo reels, and I think like John's is one of those you kind of keep, like on the shelf, and you look at. Mine is kind of like, hey, it exists, but that's pretty much it.
You're cool, JT. Stop that.
Yeah. We're here about the positive mental attitude. This is a great reel.
No. I'm just kind of like framing it a little bit. So I think there's a scale of different reels, and it was kind of with some of the questions for John's reel as well, where I think his shows a lot of where he's coming from, and the same for mine, where I don't have a lot of game dev experience. I don't come from working on a MOBA or anything like that, and I think my reel shows that to be very evident. So, but just to outside of the self-deprecation, I do work at Riot, everybody. I am here. I made it. I'm having a good time. So it's like, there's hope for you. If you're not a John, maybe you could be a JT, But yeah, just to break it down a little bit, yeah, I just did tried to show like pieces of what we'd actually be doing like on the job or from like a kit for a champ. I don't know about John, but I'm not very well versed with League of Legends either. I've been a really big fan of the art style for a really long time, but myself didn't really play it a lot before coming to actually work here. So yeah, that will also come into play with my art test as well. But yeah, I did a run. I tried to show a lot of in-game applications of things because I wasn't well versed with putting things in engine. And for those of you out there, I'm sure you're well aware that an engine implementation can be its own rabbit hole to go into if it's not something that you have readily available at your job or at your school or something like that. So a good alternative is to try to mimic the conditions of a game in Maya or 3ds Max or anything like that. The other big thing is, especially for League, I can't speak for the other games that other people are working on here, is the art style is really, really important. So like John said, motion capture not really doesn't really say a lot to us when we're looking at your reel or when it's being looked at from the team. And you really want to try with the free rigs that you're using, try to find something that has stretchy bones and things like that, and try to use smear frames and things like that as well. But yeah, my journey to getting to Riot is a crazy, crazy story that would take like 2 hours. Like every time, like I have dinner with somebody and talk about it, like it's just the entire time talking about this story. But essentially, I applied in the fall of 2022. I actually had a friend reach out to me. So I had seen the application like in early June or something, and I was like, I'm not good enough to work there. And I had a friend who had recently got hired a few months ago who was at my night school, and he had seen the application and he just passed it my way again. It was like, hey man, this application's out. You know, he works on a different team. He works in R&D. He doesn't work on Champs or League or anything like that. But he just passed my way. He was like, hey, you know, you should apply. And he's like, hey, I have a friend who works on the team. He could look at your work and give you any pointers for, you know, just like a critique, just critique your reel and give you a cold read as like where he thinks you're at, what level you're at, and stuff like that. I'm like, you know what? Like that would be great, regardless of if he thinks it's good enough or not. So he took a look at it and he was like, yeah, he didn't really have many notes. He just said like, hold this frame longer. And, and I was like, that's it? Okay, sure. And I was like, all right, then I'll just apply and see what happens. And it was a super long process, and I think this varies for people as well. My process, hiring process, was like 3 months long. I was working full time at the time as well, and I had like a ticking time bomb as well, where like I had like a friend's wedding I was trying to go to. I was working in Japan, so I had a friend's wedding I was trying to go to that was in December, and I had to like line that up with quitting, you know, if I was gonna get this job. So it was like a bunch of crazy things going on. But anyways, yeah, in the hiring process, which I can go, I guess, segue into my art test, was really interesting, especially compared to the other hiring processes I'd had up to this point. I had worked 2 jobs. Before I had worked for a startup company when I got out of school, and then after that I had worked at a mobile games company in Japan. But yeah, let me go ahead and move over to that. Cool. So this is my art test. As you can see, my grid is gigantic. And this is a recall, by the way. So there is no way in hell this would ever be in the game. But like John said, you know, the art test is kind of supposed to be about creativity. In the actual document they gave me, that was the #1 thing they said. They're like, creativity above anything else. That's what we really want to see. So, and even though it doesn't look like it with the grid size, I did do the same thing John did, was just like research a bunch of recalls. But because of my lack of that like game development I didn't recognize, I wasn't thinking of those things like, oh, hitbox, and you know, what if somebody, you know, attacks you while you're in a recall, and the verticality. Like I didn't get any of that at all for some reason. And especially working on the team now, I'm just like, how could I not think of that? But yeah, let that be like a warning, I guess. Or like, you know, just so you guys know, like, hey, if you're gonna do a recall, like keep those things in mind. But Yeah. So another big call out, giant props. This is a thing that we try to stay away from with the recall as well. And yes, it's recall and the wind down. The recall itself was the main thing. I didn't actually get to finish the wind down with the time I had. They were, and during the interview process, everybody was very patient as far as giving me time. And like if I needed more time to give more time. But yeah, just got to the point where I'm like, I just got to let it go. And, either I get it or not. And I just sent it in. But yeah, a lot of call outs with this recall for things you can't do. I did talk with some of the animators afterwards. Like once I actually got hired about like, hey, what did you think, about the recall? And what could I do to improve, just looking for feedback. So I can kind of go into some of those things. So I already talked about some. First is the grid. I mean, it's really egregious. The gigantic props, really egregious as well. One of the big things for mine, which I think you could compare it to John's as well, is this bit at the beginning is more of like acting that's going on rather than like big actions and things like that. And that was the biggest critique I got was like, hey, I think there's room for improvement for your acting. My manager had said that he felt the ending bit with like Jinx actually doing, a bunch of actions was the most successful part. And the acting bits didn't really read as well and could be vastly improved. And one of the other big things was this, the breaking of the character, which I just enjoy doing that with animations, and for whatever reason, I don't have that animator gene that screams at you and tells you that this is wrong. So, I need to be like constantly reminded to like not, continually break the rig. But yeah. So the concept for this actual is that time?
What?
Oh, sorry, that's on my own timer. 1 second. Cool. Yeah. So the concept for this recall was similar to John's, where because it's the skins team, I was like, hey, I want to make my own skin line, and that'll be the point of this recall. So I had come up with like this really convoluted kind of skin line to sell this recall. And it came from like trying to find an opportunity in League's recall. So when I had done a lot of research and things like that, I had kind of broke recalls down into a few different categories. You had like your weapons demo, you had like a kind of joking acting piece and stuff like that. And some of the things that I noticed was like there aren't really any like heartfelt or like emotional types of recalls that like try to engage emotions or that are heartfelt. They usually are more simple. And there is a reason, there is a method to that madness because you only have 8 seconds to do it. It's hard to sell somebody on an emotion without that setup. But what I was trying to do was develop that into the skin line. So the concept for this recall was to have a 15th anniversary for League of Legends, which was coming up in like 2024, I think, 2025, 2024. And it was going to be a cast of characters that are like setting up a kind of like a high school prom bash or whatever, like old school, like high school party that they're setting up. And that's the like League of Legends 15th anniversary. And Jinx was in charge of making sure the cake got there. And so for this recall, she's kind of noticing that something's missing from the cake. It's the one, and she like in a Jinx style slams the one on there and then brings it to the actual like ceremony place. So yeah, and that was essentially like the main concept and everything behind all the stuff. But yeah, so that's my story, kind of, sort of. And my experience with the hiring and everything. So yeah.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much, JT. A lot of love for JT in the chat right now, but let's also get some rats in the chat. There is one question that came up. Just so we'll give each of you one question that we fire away in between transitions. And the one question I wanted to ask you was from Bananimation, and everybody can kind of jump in here, but did you write anything up in advance of your test, or did you have a chance to describe your stories behind these animation tests before you got there?
So I assume they're talking about like when I submitted this.
Yeah, when you submitted it, or during your interview, or whatever.
Yeah, so they they asked for in the art test they tell you like, hey, yeah, you can write a few sentences about your, kind of like an artist statement, and I wrote like a 2-page, 3-page document with like, because they'd say like you could talk about your process and you can talk about your concept, and it was just really, really long, the one that I did for mine. But yeah, I did like a really extensive write-up where I kind of broke down like all those things I just said, like, hey, this is an opportunity space for this skin line, and these are other examples of things we can do within this skin line. It was almost like a thematic pitch that I was writing as I was coming up with this concept. So that's essentially what I did for mine. And more to that credit of that question, when I came in the office and I was getting feedback from the other animators about the hiring and like the roundtable that happened, that was one of the call outs that was told to me, was like, hey, your write-up was one of the main reasons that we decided to go with your application. They thought that it really fit the mindset of what they're trying to build on the team, and that there was a good space to fill, I guess, on the team for something like that. So yeah,
that's awesome. As we sort of scoot forward here, one thing I want to call out with both John and JT, your write-ups and talking about these skin lines, these are just hypothetical skin lines that you were pitching just for like legal reasons. These are not skin lines that we're making. These are just part of the choices that they made when they applied, and we love to see it. John, quick comment from you, and then we gotta keep on keeping on.
Yeah. So no, basically like similar to JT, I don't think they ever like directly asked for like, oh, like find like a skin line or something. It was more just about like the process. But I feel like that does help you like stand out a little bit, to be like, oh, like you're also like thinking of just something like beyond what we're asking of you of the test. Like you're thinking creatively about like there's purpose behind what you're doing. So yeah, it wasn't necessarily like asked for either of us, but we did it anyway because me and JT are pretty cool people. So yeah.
I also provided a document when I applied. I think in general, anytime you can show that your like default state is above and beyond is like it doesn't hurt.
I think I actually stole that from you, Lana, when you were talking about yours in the rat stream. I was like, that's a good idea.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Well, dope. Can we get rats in the chat one more time for JT? Thank you so much for your awesome presentation. And who is the next freshest rat?
I can go next as the Valorant team. Yeah.
All right, so, Kailey, take us away.
So I can share my deal.
For music?
Audio. Yeah. So audio's there.
Well, you hit the trifecta, didn't you? I mean, guns, drugs, money laundering, in the state of Arkansas.
Oh, Lana, I think you have to share.
Yeah.
I swapped it. Sorry.
I
Let's start over
again.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, you hit the trifecta, didn't you? I mean, guns, drugs, money laundering, and the state of Arkansas is gonna rip the bark right off of you, boy. We are gonna put you in a 4x6 cell for the rest of your life.
You know, my abuelita used to make the most delicious jalapeno chocolate cake you ever had. It's a secret ingredient.
Jalapeno chocolate.
Sounds weird, but when you taste it, oh, it's so unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
I wish you'd have called us before you reached out.
Called you? You wish I would have called you? You know I didn't call you, Justin? Because every time I throw you a pass, you bat it down, just like you're doing now.
I'm here to save you.
So, okay, and then I can start to talk. So, we don't have actually animation tasks for Valorant team. So, we are a little bit different with the LoL team. Yeah, the League team. Mm-hmm. And then also we can they also like to kind of acting shots I made like that. Mm-hmm. We don't need to whole game animation nails. So we like the action acting, all the shots. We love it, the Valorant team. And then also the previous company, I was in the R&D metaverse project at Sony. So actually I don't have a company work to show the Riot interview process. And so I worked the personal my project after work. And then I put the demo reel there, and then they kind of my police style, and then action, and then acting the character pushing the character style, kind of that. So this one, so I made the for my demo reel, and then after a while the interview, I had a the game industry experience, so I showed it while the interview process. So this game is published to the Nintendo and then Epic Games. So I was in lead animator whole game. So I created a whole animation by myself. So there are lots of 1P animation and then 3P, lots of wild animals. I create everything. So its animation quality is not pretty high, kind of Riot, but they I worked everything myself, and then having game animation industry history kind of that.
So did you do all the animation hookups and everything too, like the system sort of writing?
Oh, so this one I created animation in Maya, and then we used the Unity. So I tried to put all the animation in Unity, and I worked the game designer. Yeah, so we had some cinematic shots, and then 1P animation. It's a narrative game, so yeah, I did lots of the every animation by myself. And then total production time was 1 year, 6 months.
What?
So yeah, it was crazy, but I didn't do overtime or so. I'm really fast person, so yeah, it was very good, and then it was fun because it's pretty game. Yeah. So.
Jeez. So going through and doing every animation by yourself, how do you think that helped you? You mentioned that Riot that because you were fast, but how do you is that something that you were able to talk about during your interview at some point, or how did you submit this knowing that the animation quality would be lower, but it was still valuable as a part of what you submitted to Riot?
Yeah, right. So it's kind of super specific, it's Alaska and then Slapdog game. It's so I watched lots of documentation also and then when director asked me about what shots they need and what kind of specific animation they need, I just found quickly in the YouTube or any documentation from the Netflix or kind of that, and then just try. And then this animation I didn't do stacky animation. I just made in the spline and auto key because I don't have time to making blocking fast.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy, but and then there was 9, I think over 10 wild animal or so. I just watched the documentation very deeply, how they move and then what is their habitat kind of that. So, and then try to apply their movement in animation very quickly kind of that. So trying to very quickly, and then I, as an animator, I want to do more polish and then high quality of animation, but it's indie game studio is so hard because our production time is very short, and then the budget price and everything, release date we have. So it's kind of, I try to make them fast, and then, just making cool, pretty game, for the indie campaign. And then also I can show this one. This is my thesis. And then also Arena also from the LinkedIn College. So we are from the LinkedIn College of Art and Design. And then I created everything also by myself. This is my thesis. I did character design, storyboard, modeling, animating, lighting, and everything. I did it. And then while the interview, actually in Valorant interview, I didn't talk about my demo reel. We talk about my thesis, and then my game, the DeLeon. So our Valorant animator likes kind of I can design the character. I really like the drawing, so they loved my drawing, storyboarding. So we talk about kind of my creativity, kind of that. So yeah, it's kind of, yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. So you guys can watch in YouTube. Like it's called Nodding Off. It's my short film.
So you work on, you said Valorant, correct?
Yeah, Valorant.
And are you on? I think they have the skins. I know they have like skins and new agents. Are you on? Can you say which one you're on?
Yeah, I'm Gunskin team right now. So
Gunskin. Okay.
Yeah. So we have a character team and Gunskin team, and On is character team right now, and the me is Gunskin, and then we are kind of rotation system. So after working like 6 months in Gunskin, I can work the character team later. Like it's kind of flexible. Yeah.
How long have you been working for the Gunskin team?
So An and me, like we have the same start date. So we started the work at the Riot like April 10th. So it's becoming like 3 months right now.
Yeah.
So you don't have to actually work in game. So yeah, maybe gonna like put it soon, I hope. But yeah, we're working on right now, and then I hope to show the people in the game soon.
So, I was curious how, since your background and you're able to cover like so many different disciplines, how does that translate to your day to day? Like, are you someone on the team who touches more than just animations? Do you like help consult, help like facilitate conversations, or I was just curious about that.
So you mean like my Gunskin animation, or?
Yeah, like your day-to-day job on with Gunskins. How does your experience, I guess, with working on like short films and modeling and texturing, or does that help you with that?
Oh yeah, it's like creativity is always helping. Like when people ask me about we're gonna make kind of that gun skin, like specific, I can imagine about. Yeah, I have also my like gun also here, like for reference. So we have a like I can show that. Yeah, I'm usually putting this one, the phone handler, and then here, and then shooting the reference kind of that. So like when I see about the concept design, the gun skin, thinking about the what animation should be, so it's like it's very helpful because like have to be creativity, and the player gonna be love about buying that gun skin, have to pay it, so it's very important about that. So yeah, it's everything. Like I think my experience, like like very different, like indie game, like short film, like, and then I worked the metaverse also, so very helpful to knowing about the young players, for Valorant team.
We've got a question from the chat here from, I'm going to say it wrong, Viraras Zero. It seemed like you had a lot of experience doing like big projects by yourself. How was it to enter a team with like a bunch more awesome animators on it?
Awesome animator? Okay, I'm not awesome animator. I want to be.
We are not here for the negative self-talk, y'all. This is a PMA stream. Positive mental attitude, baby. Anyway, awesome animators. Kailey, how was it joining your kind?
So, like it's my demo reel, also not super specific gameplay type animation, but like while the interview process, I always talking about what is my like enthusiasm kind of that, the making some cool thing, and then showing like delivering my like creativity and then love thing to the people, like kind of that. Because the short film also I made it because like I want to make people to happy, because after work it's very tired to driving to go home, so I just want to give like some small like smile and joy to people. So the reason I made it, and then also I made actually the 3D doll on my car also. Yeah, 3D printing. So I always thinking about kind of that. So also like in the game gonna be same, and then Valorant gonna be like like when you buy the gun skin, that is your favorite gun, and then you should play with that gun like while the game. So animation should be fun, and then very like your type kind of that. So I always focusing on kind of that, like. And then want to be like like awesome animator, like kind of that based on my kind of that. Yeah.
Awesome. Anybody have any last questions here for Kailey? And otherwise, can we get some rats in the chat? Kailey, thank you so much for sharing your reel and your experiences. We love to hear from it. Man, the diversity of backgrounds here. Beautiful. Beautiful. Rats in the chat. Folks, I'm going to repeat myself in case you're just joining us halfway through. We will be having an AMA section for all of the rats right after this. So please send me your questions. I'm copying them and adding them to my list for later. But for now, first, we have three animators remain. Who would like to go next?
I can go.
Aharonit.
Yes, hello, my name's Aharonit, and we get to jump back to League skins. There's a lot of representation with that here. Let me see where my reel is. So, and can you share your screen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there audio?
No, there isn't. Interesting, yeah. Okay, so a little bit of background. I jumped around as a contractor for a lot of animation jobs earlier on in my career. So I did a little bit of VFX, 2D commercials, interned to DreamWorks, all kinds of little things like that. And then I ended up in indie games mostly. And I did a variety of small projects and bigger projects throughout my time there, mostly at Well Told Entertainment, doing a bunch of like for hire work for other studios until we finally got to make our own game, The Foglands. Very cool. It's just got announced recently. And so I didn't have like a ton of stuff that was like super relevant to League and kind of until Foglands started happening. And even then it's like different because it's a VR first person game. So I just had to pick and choose like whatever things I could. So this first one is not from that. About a year ago, there was or a year before I applied, there was like an animation monthly challenge that Riot worked with Agora, which you guys should also follow if you haven't. Where Riot supplied rigs and you could do just an animation intro. So that was what that first thing was. But the rest of these animations are just from the different little indie games that I'd worked on. And at the time, most of these shots are from Foglands, and at the time that hadn't been announced. So this was all just like password protected NDA, which can be a little bit of a spicy topic sometimes. But I think that if you're applying to like a big studio and the majority of your work is NDA, it is okay to just make sure it's very protected and shown to just the people who need to see it for your application. And that like you have to be able to do that sometimes because otherwise you can't get work because sometimes it takes forever for things to come out in the game world. And this is like there's that little note is because there's still a section of stuff that hasn't been public. So there's additional creature animation that I added in this reel when I applied that I excluded for this stream. But yeah, basically, this is probably a good example of me just trying to piecemeal things together to be like, I can animate, I can work in games. I have some acting shots like this one, and as well as just, hey, League reference. Even though I'd never played League, I'd watched Arcane, but I knew pretty much nothing about League when I applied. And yeah, so I did this, and I think I never like talked to anyone about it, but I think that my cover letter might have helped too because it everyone write a cover letter when you apply because I got to supplement this with like, hey, I also have all this experience working on different types of games that maybe the animations weren't super impressive, but I got to learn how to work with all these other disciplines and rig props and work in Unity creating the mech anim system and Unreal making blueprints and like working back and forth with designers and engineers and just like all those soft skills and extra just knowledge about other departments that can really come in handy. So I think that kind of helped with the more holistic view of what I could bring to the table. And then I did get a referral from a friend who worked in R&D, which was very helpful. And he just was like, if there's an animation job at Riot, just let me know. And I was like, I don't think I'm there yet. Like that might be a goal for later. but I just did it anyway. And I honestly, just full honesty, did not know what personalization on League meant. I was just like, this is an animation role at Riot that popped up, so let's get a referral in. And it worked out, so it's okay. Like, you should definitely research the jobs you're applying for, but my main focus was trying to find an environment that I was happy in, and just a place to grow as an animator. And I had been watching the streams also, and watching cinematics and League animation videos and stuff, so I was just excited to be part of the like internal workings more than I was like a fan of the game originally. And so then, yeah, somewhere in the middle of the animation process, I got the art test, or at the middle of the interview process, I got assigned an art test, the same one as JT and John, and I also chose Draven. And I didn't even know what a recall was, so I did a lot of research about that, and research about the different characters that they gave us, and just felt like Draven had the most fun personality. I actually love Braum, but I'd already had an animation of Braum in my reel, so I liked Draven's like showy personality. I did not research or come up with my own skin line. I just kind of focused on trying to show off that I could do acting, body mechanics, like prop handling, like not just the weapons that come in the rig, but also just other prop handling. And then just also really show off his personality. So I had a lot of fun doing this, but it was also kind of exhausting because I had a full-time job and I didn't want to take time away from that job while I was applying. So it took me about 2 weeks of working after work to do this. Yeah, and this was kind of so just to like show the steps of the interview process, I think it's somewhat similar for all of us, or some of us, is I think I had like the initial recruiter call and a response to my referral, which you don't need a referral, but it can be helpful. And then from then on, I had an interview with my animation manager, who's my manager now, just talking about experiences, what you want out of your job, and then me asking him questions too, because in this kind of an interview process, like, you want to sell yourself and present yourself, but you're interviewing them also. So like, you got to remember that you're trying to find a place that is a good fit for yourself as well, and it feels better for both parties if it's like a back and forth conversation, where you're like sort of socializing and just figuring out if you're a good fit. And like, even if you're like desperate for a job and you need to have this and this is what you want, I think it's still just like a better energy to bring to the table if it is that back and forth of like, okay, are we going to synergize well?
I also think, just to cut in a little, it like shows so much about who you are. Like, what, as somebody who interviews candidates frequently for all types of roles, if somebody comes in, I'm like, great, I'm leaving 15 full minutes at the end of the hour for questions from me. And we get there and they're like, I have nothing to say to you. I'm like, great, I won't have anything to say to you forever. You know? I'm just kidding. That's harsh.
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
No, it's fair. It's fair.
A question in chat for you. There's a couple questions about what you're talking about in chat. I'll pull just a few, and then we'll keep moving on. But from Michael Esque, what kind of questions do you ask in interviews?
Good question. Trying to remember. It feels like a lifetime ago, but I know that I asked. I interviewed with a lot of people, so I did try to somewhat customize my questions to who I was talking to. But when I was talking to my animation manager, and also when I interviewed with another animator on the team, I asked questions about the pipeline and like tried to get a little more into like the technical side of how things worked, so I could sort of be like, at my studio, I helped develop this thing. So it's kind of showing off a little bit. And this is how we work. Like, what's like your version, or like, how do you handle this part of the pipeline? Stuff like that, just to like find out how they were working, because that was important to me, but then also show that I like had the experience to talk about how to work in different studio settings. And then otherwise, I would ask other departments like what their experience working with animators at League, or on League or Riot is like, and any questions specific to their craft, so I could show like I've coordinated with VFX artists before, like this is how I've worked with a VFX artist. How do you work with an animator? Does that match up? Kind of stuff like that. And then every person I asked what your favorite and least favorite thing about working at Riot is. And I think everyone was like quick to say what their favorite thing was. And then like, oh, interesting. And had to stop and think about their least favorite because they want to sell the company to me too, but they appreciate the critical thinking also. Like you shouldn't just be like kissing up to them basically. Like you need to make it like you're figuring out exactly what you're getting yourself into. And I liked the honesty that I got from it, and it made me feel more prepared. I'm rambling on.
I just wanted to chime in. I know something that my parents, like about the questioning, my parents and like all the old heads, the boomers from beyond the dinosaur age, everybody was telling me like, oh, you got to grill them with questions. And it, just like Lana said, like if you're not asking questions, then they're not going to hire you. And I just kind of want to put it out there that it's not that serious in that vein where it's like you don't have to come up with a list of 50 questions or and they're not going to be necessarily looking super deep into your specific questions. It's more just when you're in the interview, you just need to have the mindset of, do I want to work for this company? And when you have that mindset, you're naturally going to be digging for more answers. So that's basically it. And at least that was my mindset going in, where it's like, hey, I just want to know about this. They'll say something. If you have a question, just write it down, and then you can ask about it. If something piques your interest, ask about it. That's pretty much it as far as I'm concerned. But I feel like Lana could really give more since she actually does hiring.
Well, I will say I saw a couple more questions in chat about this stuff. I'll save it till the end because I want to make sure everybody can present. But Aharonit, we need rats in the chat for you. Rats in the chat for Aharonit. Amazing animation. Thank you so much for your thoughtful presentation and sharing your beautiful work with us. Whoo, y'all are talented. It's killing me.
Thank you.
2 rats remaining. Who's
I
next?
can go next.
Elena was like ready to rock, paper, scissors. I'd love to see it. Or fight, you know? I don't know which one it was.
Blood sport on the rat streak.
Rat 1v1.
All right, you are up. We got the screen shared. Take it away.
Yeah, so I'm currently on the Valorant characters team. And yeah, so this is my real, and as you probably will see, most of the animation is more on the film focus side. So I don't have a whole lot of gameplay animation in my real, or actually at all, actually. But yeah, here we go.
Do you have audio?
Yes, there's dialogues.
All right.
I have no one. And you are the only person that I can talk to. Now, whatever this thing is, you need it. So, you just tell me what to do.
Can I give you one genius piece of advice? Don't run. It'll only hurt more if you do. And it's bad for your joints. They've proved it.
Woo! Beautiful.
But yeah, so as you can see, most of my work are particularly in the film industry, and that's actually my background. I came from a VFX feature film background. So like my previous gig before I was actually with Luma, who's doing a lot of VFX work for Marvel projects. And then even before that, even when I had like a small stint in game, it was with Game Cinematic. So yeah, since most of the stuff are from film, and even when I was in in school, it's just training for animation. Like most of the time, the focus is still on like more the film focus side. So it's interesting thinking that now I'm working for Valorant on the game company. So yeah, I think it goes to say like you never really know where your career and where your trajectory is gonna take you. Yeah, which is interesting because I like before I even applied for Valorant, I actually applied also on the League of Legends side, like for a couple of times also, but obviously I didn't get a job. But yeah, I think it goes to show that yeah, like as long as you keep doing the work, you're passionate about the craft and just keep making cool animation, yeah, eventually something will come up and yeah.
Yeah. Brendan Animate in the chat says their loss. I agree. One of the things I think is interesting, you obviously have these beautiful acting shots in your reel. The VFX shots that you have are so much, they're quite brief, but I do think they add a lot to your reel in a particular way. Do you want to talk about why you included the shots from Marvel?
Yeah, for sure. So I think mostly the shots for Marvels. So my thinking process when I included these was that I wanted to include something with a lot of creature animation, and also to show that I also have production experience. But I think like the more important thing is that I am able to show that I can do creature animation. So yeah, like a lot of the shots with like particularly the shots. Some of the shot for this section was so I did for some of these shots so what I remember the most working on this shot is just like even though it's creature animation, a lot of the same principles still apply, like strong posing, strong timing, like this sense of weight, and it's just all about just applying all of the basic principles of animation into just really a different set of mechanics and a different set of and then movement. And it's not even a quadruped. This is actually like the first time I even animate something with tentacles. So it's a little bit of an interesting challenge. But yeah, most of these shot, I think like the main thinking process is to show that I'm able to animate not just with characters, to show performance and subtleties and acting, all that kind of juicy stuff, but to also show that I can do mechanics with creature and working in like a VFX production environment where I have to do some and you have to have knowledge of other aspects of like mocap or even with using using plates or just any of those production experience.
Yeah, I fully agree. When you see somebody who has something that has like from a professional venture that they've been on, it shows not only that you can animate, but you can also work with a team of people to do that. And I think that's something that can either be said in the cover letter but it's hard to show like in a demo reel. And so I just think showing even like shots like that from VFX background are really quick. It still says so much more about who you are as an animator and what your experience is, stacked with, of course, your incredibly well done acting shots throughout the rest of the piece. It's like a beautiful picture. So here's a question from the chat. Where is it? Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, if you don't necessarily work on a project that has a ton of Riot-esque animation, what kind of work would you prioritize to showcase your skills?
I would say any type of work that can showcase. I would say boil down to two things. One is your foundation skill. Like I mentioned before, just anything that can show that you have like a strong sense for timing, for posing, showing that you have good acting idea, that you can just really have fun and be creative with the process. And the other thing is really just showing who you are as an artist and as an animator. It's really showing that identity. For example, like if you're more into something that is more subtle with the acting, or if you're more into very big, very body mechanics heavy shot, then obviously include those as like a good talking point for who you are as an animator, and to really showcase that, oh yeah, this is my piece of the pie in the big pie of animation. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. JT.
Yeah, I was curious. Since your reel shows your film expertise, and like you said, it doesn't have any game related shots. In the interview process, did that come up? And if it did, what was the conversation about? And the reason I asked that is I've heard in the past, I know demo reels and it's all in the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I've heard in the past that people have passed on reels with amazing film quality animation because they felt that the person applying wasn't interested in working in game development. So I would just be interested in hearing your take.
Great question.
I think that conversation during the interview process mostly centered around like whether I'm interested in working in a game environment or not, and like what I see my trajectory in the game industry is like. And I mean, even though I'm in the film industry, I played a whole lot of games and League and Valorant in general. So I think even when I'm in the film industry, I still can imagine myself just really enjoy doing game work. And I think just to be able to show that in the interview process is also really helpful, even though you don't have a lot of game work on your reel. And I think what also helps with Valorant in particular is, and this might be something that's different from League, but with Valorant, I think the fact that you can animate cameras and working from like a first person perspective, I think that with the compared to like the film side of things, that there are quite a bit of overlaps in terms of like how do I pose for the camera, how do I animate the camera to be able to add weight, because we can't, especially with first person animation, we can't see the whole body of the character. So how you rely on camera movement and posing good silhouette to show weight and show like good timing, like good body mechanics that are not with just your hands and the gun, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We got a couple people in the chat, verifying that An is a certified epic gamer, and apparently you destroy everyone on your team during playing Valorant. So we love to see it. Can we get rats in the chat, please, for An? Thank you so much for sharing with us. I so appreciate your time and energy. Woo! All right. Last but certainly not least, I believe is the #1 freshest rat. Is that true? I think you're muted.
That's right. I've only been here since about a month. Last mid-May was my start day, and it has been an absolute blast.
Amazing. Well, Elena, please take it away. You're in the driver's seat, baby.
Fantastic. All right. So I am a student. I am a rising senior at Ringling College of Art and Design. So a lot of my work is not actually gameplay oriented, but I can still take you through what steps I took to try and get noticed as a student.
Are you laughing or crying? I can't tell. I want to have the appropriate reaction. Hey man, come here.
Oh. Amazing. Man, imagine being that talented as a student. Sorry, please continue.
You're a rising
Woo!
senior.
Oh my God.
I feel old. Oh,
You're so good. Oh my God.
Yeah, she's so good in the meetings.
So talented.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so here's a couple of I'll just clip this off so it doesn't loop. But all right, so one thing you might notice is so there's like a lot of students. I'm gonna say this sort of like how I focus on making a reel to get an internship, because for me, there's like me and like my entire junior class and the entire senior class like all sending out their applications at the same time. And the way my school works is we're all focusing on our own work, and it's sort of like you have to do everything from scratch. So for example, this model, rig, texture, everything. So one of the things that I did to approach that is when you do have your little pieces of bits, because you only get like maybe 4 projects a semester, is it's really important to sort of find something that keeps it entertaining. So for example, this first one was a push-pull assignment. And so one thing you can do is sort of push and pull a box. So, but the thing is, when you get like 10 boxes, push, pull, that doesn't become very interesting to watch. So one thing I did was like, okay, well, how can I make it silly? How can I make it cute? How can I give it personality? So that's something that I find really important. So it's like, why would a recruiter pause on this? Or can I get the recruiter to like react emotionally? So one thing for me is like, oh, well, try to infuse a tiny little story into absolutely everything you do so that you have as much fun doing it as you do learning the process. So
that was just your weight assignment?
Yeah, that was my push-pull assignment.
My God.
I just wanted, I had the crappiest rig. I was frame by frame animating. There are so many paint overs. Half of these are like completely painted over. Like every single frame is painted over. But as long as the final thing looks good. This was a silhouette assignment. And one thing you can't do is like have a character sort of walking in a silhouette and be like, okay, it's just a walk cycle and it's silhouette, so he's black and white. But I was like, okay, well, what can I do with the silhouette? Well, Greek amphores are silhouettes. How can I make a story out of it? Maybe they're in love. Maybe they break and get together. So it's always like, because as a student, like, you know, you're not going to be making the absolutely, like, I have a ton of body mechanics issues in here. I have a ton of, like, little bits that just do not line up. But if you can make a little story that's, like, relevant and grabs the recruiter's attention, then that's something that really helps. And then also for me, it was like, okay, how can I make something that's fun to look at? How can I make a character that's like exciting to enjoy? And something here was like, this is the first thing I've animated, and I was told by my recruiter that he actually liked this the most because it's like trying to show personality. And then also this is the shot that was like, okay, I can animate from multiple angles. This is the only non-locked camera. So that was the most game thing I had in my entire reel. When it came to the interview process, I applied in December and I had 3 hour-long interviews. And one thing that helped for me at least was sort of, because I have like no experience in games, I actually have never played League. I've tried. I have a Quizlet. I'm learning the champions, guys. We're getting there. Since I didn't have that experience, it was like when they were interviewing me, they're like, why do you like this? And I was like, oh, well, I'm going to tell you why I love animation, and I'm going to tell you why I love the idea of making a collaborative piece that's used just for the sake of socializing. So it was kind of like finding the passion in what you do. And when it does come to interviews, I actually talked about a lot of things that aren't on my reel. I had this one piece sophomore year, worst thing I ever made, absolute trash, hated it. But I ended up talking about it a lot because I think it's important to learn from your mistakes, and any way that you can sort of build up from that and be like, okay, well, I made all these mistakes here, but I couldn't have had this better piece if I didn't learn from this horrible piece that I made. So that's something that I think is helpful to keep in mind, because then it also shows like, oh, you're learning, you're trying, you're attempting. Yeah. And that's about it on my end. It was just like a lot of like trying to show your personality, trying to put stories so it's a reel that's fun to watch, even if like the mechanics are wrong. If you can get a chuckle out of it, then it sort of leaves an impression on the recruiter if they're looking through like 1,000 different applications. And trying to. And then when it came to the interview, showing that you have a good personality and are fun to work with, something that helps with the interview is I do extracurricular activities and I lead improv club, so, you know, goofy. And I had also actually scripted some tools for some of my fellow students to use to sort of save some time. So just mentioning that kind of stuff to show that, like, I'm a team player. I like being silly. I think that helped in my application process as well.
My God. Yeah. You're hired again. You're hired a million times over. What a beautiful breakdown of what you've done here. Holy shit. Sorry, we had a couple questions in chat. One of them in particular that I want to get to that is for you, Elena, specifically. What do you mean by paint overs?
Oh, okay. So let me talk.
We lost you? Is it me?
Yeah, we're back.
Oh, there you go.
Let me tell you, I made a really ugly noise because I made a laugh that was wrong, but I muted myself, so it's fine. Anyway, so I'm going to tell you what a paint over is. So sometimes when you animate something, especially when it comes to something like this, so I've modeled it, I've textured it, I've animated it, I made a lighting key of it, like I render it out. Now, you might run into an issue where you modeled your weights wrong, and the weights are kind of like, imagine origami, like how you want the creases to be clean, like you want a clean crease. Now, if you don't make a clean crease, it can look really ugly. And so for me, I was getting these black lines all over this character's head every time her head squashed. And I told my professor, how do I get rid of that? And he's like, oh, well, you could just go back and re-render it, or you could go into every single frame, export it as a targa, put it into Photoshop, paint over the black lines so that they're blue, so that you can't tell. But that's like all of your frames, so don't do that. Anyway, 300 frames later, I did that. And I also did it for my last project, which was about twice as long. But
and you can't see it. Like I'm sitting here like trying to find like the paint over line, and it's not like, oh, because it's in motion we can't see it. It's just
I've done some really horrendous things in my Maya file, but since it's photoshopped, it's fine. So I get away with a lot of stuff that way.
Oh
yeah.
My God. Incredible. Rats, do you have any questions for Elena before we open it up into the all hands AMA here? All right. My God. Rats in the chat oh wait. You have one, Sean. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious, I guess, just like at least with like your internship experience at the moment, like how do you kind of feel now that it's like you're entering more of like this games world in comparison to a lot of like student work? What's kind of going through your mind as you're sort of entering this workflow?
Well, one, it's super intimidating being on anim reviews because you're just surrounded by all this amazing talent, and you're just sitting there with like, all right, I have my channel. I hope they like it. So that's definitely part of it. Another thing is that the type of animation specifically done on League of Legends is unlike any animation that I have on my reel. So one, it's a locked camera that's like a top-down angle, security cam, most horrible angle I've ever worked with in my life, but it's really fun. It's really fun to learn. And it's also this, like, you only get 2 inches of space and there's no facial acting, which is something that like I use a lot. Like, so it's been a really interesting way to sort of learn on top of it, because it's a new level of animation where it's like, all right, well, here are all these limitations. Now you have all these limitations. How can you make something specific and entertaining and readable from that? So it's been a lot of like, and then you have to put it through the engine. You can't paint over the engine. Like, what the hell? But the engine is also like a really fun way. So honestly, it's definitely been a learning curve, because it's a different camera angle. It's a different type of rig. It's a different type of animation, and it's much more body acting than facial acting. And it has to look good from every angle. So, and then it's a different pipeline too, because there are some characters you'll work with that you just can't shoot reference for. And so it's just been kind of like taking all those limitations and trying to adapt to them and make something stronger or find workflows that are more efficient and better suited for that kind of work. So it's been so exciting to everyone at Riot is so nice. Everyone's so friendly. Everyone is like just willing to give credit, and it's been such an honor to work at this company. Oh, also, I had another internship that helped with my application process too. But the games industry is like, all the people here have been fantastic, super friendly. They're like mechanical lions on campus right now. Every day is new. But yeah, it's just been a great time to start learning and learn in ways that I hadn't, and use my brain in ways, because kind of what Anne was saying earlier, it's like you still use all the basic principles of animation. You just sort of have to relearn it. And I feel like that makes you just a more efficient animator. And for me, it's like, my thing is like, as long as you're seeking to learn, then you can never go wrong. And even if you're bad at some things, like for example, Python, I'm a terrible scripter, but if I can learn just a little bit enough to like make something that saves me time, then it's worth it. So as long as you're trying to learn, then it'll always get you in somewhere good.
Beautiful.
You and me both. Python's wild. And for the record, you were doing amazing also in your internship. So yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. So can we please get rats in the chat for Elena? Really a fantastic work. Really fantastic work. And with that, we're going to move into a little bit of AMA. We're running a little long already. So I've got a list of questions that folks have asked before. Rats, does anybody have to go? Is anybody like, oh my God, the time?
Good.
Okay, good. We're going to keep hanging out with all y'all. If you have more questions, we're not going to go all night, but please feel free to post in the chat and we'll answer a bunch. To kick things off, we'll start with like a pretty simple one. This was a couple people asked a similar question, namely, what is the average amount of time for one animation? Or if you want to be more specific to the work that we talked about today, what's like the average amount of time that you spent on your art test?
So is this art test specifically, or is this saying production animation?
You can answer both, either, neither.
Yeah, just to give some context, I think there are a lot of variables in place for these. Experience is one of the big things, and also the rig and the actual context of the animation. So what you're doing, like a flinch hit reaction animation is going to take you no time versus like an 8-second recall. But as far as I could speak on my art tests and stuff. My art test took unfinished art test, but my art test took about 3 weeks while I was working full time. But I was just working double overtime to do it, so probably like 40 hours, 60 hours, something like that. To do something like that in-house for my level of animation, so I'm an associate, it would probably be like 4 to 5 weeks full time. So I don't 8 times 5 is 50 hours, something like that. So it's around the same time. But I will say, when you're in house, you have the resources of being in house. So you have people giving you critiques and helping you along the way and pushing you in the right direction and helping you save time, helping you reuse. So it would be a lot smoother than just kind of going on the high seas and, tackling this animation. So yeah.
I just want to call it one thing. You did say in-house it would take you 5 weeks. Did you mean 5 days?
5 days for an 8-second recall? No way.
5 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
For me.
Just making sure. Then you said 50. Don't worry about it. Math is fine.
Oh,
I'm bad
wait.
at math.
Maybe my time tables are getting messed up. Yeah.
A long time.
I'll just
Aharonit, go ahead.
I'll just step in and say, like, I would believe 5 weeks just because of you're spending a lot of your time in meetings and events and reviews, and you're getting notes from a lot of people, and then you have to test and do troubleshooting and stuff like that. So it ends up stretching out a lot, but it's not like, it's probably not 5 weeks of 40 hours a day or 40 hours a week, whatever the times are. We animate, we don't do math, but yeah.
I did a little bit of math. I actually counted the hours for my test, and I think it was just around 32 for my recall for Draven. Yeah, shout out Labor Day weekend. Giving me a little bit extra time.
Shout out. Love it. Anyone else want to speak to that, or I'll move on to the next question? All right. This one was from Aramil. Outside of previous employment, did anyone have access to or recommendations for things like mentorship programs?
Yes. Kyosol.com. Check it. Yeah, for me, I was working for about a year, so 4 semesters at Kyosol Academy. They're a mentorship academy, and for just to kind of like give some more details on it, the difference between like going someplace like I haven't been there, but like I Animate or Animation Mentor, like those types of schools are more like a typical school education where you have assignments and you go down the assignments and do them. At Kyosol, it's just you make up your own assignments. The point of it is that you are getting mentorship from a high level animator. So I worked with 2 animators from Blizzard that worked on Overwatch 2. And so they're giving me a lot of good information and good feedback that's directly applicable to what they do day to day and giving me a lot of good guidance. So yeah, I would definitely check them out. They're actually, if I can advertise a little bit more, they are right now open for applications. So you could submit your reel and hopefully get in. So
cool.
Highly recommend. Even not them, just mentorship in general. So
Yeah, I did anim school like right after I graduated my undergrad, and that's kind of like I animate animation mentor. It's in that family. Um and I think it's very helpful. It is very time consuming because like J2 is saying, you are assigned animations that you just go through and then you get just like so many notes and so much feedback. But I found it pretty helpful for honestly, even just getting used to having your work shown repeatedly and like taken apart in front of a bunch of people, like that helped build that, like make a thick skin. Like they're not mean, it's just like hard to get used to that when you're early on in your career. And they just helped me learn to animate. They have a game animation track. I didn't take that, but I think that is also good, probably from what I've heard. And then yeah, I guess plug again Agora community online. They have so many free rigs and resources and streams and animation competitions and stuff like that. So that one you have to be a lot more proactive with, but it's free, so it's cool.
just to jump off of that, for anybody who's looking for game implementation stuff, there is a Agora class taught by our very own Skylar on there. So definitely check it out on Agora. It's one of the things I checked out. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's a great class. I also found out that Skylar helped write the curriculum for Animation Mentor. He's like an underground animation celebrity for having absolutely no social media presence. Sorry, I heard somebody unmute. Was somebody else going to touch on mentorship or
Maybe me.
Kailey?
Yeah, I took the anim stuff, but not sure they are doing right now because I saw their website is not like the own. But I also when I worked in the indie game studio, I worked my personal took online class. Like I think weekday I worked over like the 3 a.m. until 3 a.m. like 4 a.m. So, like like in my the indie game animation quality is not super high. The reason why I need to make my personal project. So I did a lot of my personal animation after work. So it was so hard, but I came to Lios finally. So yeah, it's kind of really a lot of work and becoming the animator, awesome animator.
Hell yeah. Awesome animator. Hell yeah. All right. Moving on to the next question here. When it comes to your art tests, did you show it to anyone to get feedback before you submitted it?
I did not. I just worked alone in secret and then sent it over and prayed.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question because, like, of course you could like show it to like friends, but you also are like, if you're, especially if you're already employed, you don't want to be like, I am looking for work, like loudly at the office. But one thing I think is interesting about this question that I've heard of people doing, but pretty few and far between, is actually sending it halfway through to the animation team that you are applying to for feedback, which I think is something that is totally fine. Well, like, okay, I'm not going to speak for every animation team. Maybe some people are really stuck up. I mean, have different ideas of how to do things. But I think that's like such a great thing because it shows that you're comfortable getting feedback or asking for feedback, and also can show how you implement feedback, which is what the reality of what the job is. The job is not, I made something perfect and polished and now you take it. Next, please. The job is collaborative. Hey, what do you think about this? Is this too broad? Can you give me some notes? And like, I've never seen, at least at Riot, somebody be like, no, figure it out. Usually people are like, oh, sick. And then they give you notes and then you can apply them. So your art test doesn't have to be as like a daunting thing that you necessarily feel like you're sending away and just like saying a prayer about. You can, it's totally fine if the team is available. There's definitely a world where they might be like, we're too busy, sorry. But showing it to the people you're applying to for feedback, as long as you're not already at like the end of your time, like working quickly, get a quick pass, show it off, I think is like a totally legit strategy. And in response to Two Steel, first time chat, A, welcome, B, yes, you can just ask anything in chat. It'd be great.
Yeah, I know for me, I did reach out to my mentors at Kilsel for feedback. And to Lana's point, I think that's a great thing. That's something we do day to day. We usually block things out roughly, get some eyes on it, so we go in a good direction. The only thing I will say, as a warning, is especially for the lesser experienced, like younger animators out there, is just know what you're getting into when you are asking for feedback. I know, especially early on in your animation career, it's really easy to get like tied to your work, and then you might get feedback that's like, tear it all down, and it's just like, just know that could be reality. So if you're putting, a crap ton of hours in, even if it's rough, just know that could be a thing. So kind of just accept like, hey, I'm just looking for feedback. It could be, very intensive. It could be, hey, you're doing great. Keep going in this direction. It's awesome. And more to her point, for mine, if I had shown mine earlier on, they would have called it out immediately, like, like the props and the zone, the hitbox. So like, yeah, that would be great.
Kind of going off of JT's point about taking credit and feedback, one thing that I think of is every time I make something, this is the worst thing I'm going to make in this period of time. The next thing is going to be better as a result of it. Like I had a shot, every single critique was basically reblock, reblock, reblock. This doesn't make sense. And in the end, I wasn't able to use that shot in my reel, but it's like critique is like when I love critique because it's a time for someone to like, they're taking the time to look at your work and make you the best that you can do and do the best you can. So as long as you see critique as sort of an opportunity to improve, like this is the time where it's like, this wasn't working. And now I have other people looking at this thing I've been bashing my head against and they're taking their time to actually like invest in my improvement. Like that's amazing. That's so cool. So critique is never personal. It's always like, this is how you can become better.
Massive +1.
Yeah. And kind of also to go off of that, I think other people like notice that attitude too. Like when people want to do better by themselves to improve their craft, other people are like, oh yeah, like maybe this guy isn't like the best animator in the world, but like maybe he's gonna be the best animator in the world. Like he's like always like trying to improve his stuff, each new thing. So yeah, it's just a good like healthy mentality for sure.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to scoot to the next question. We'll sort of have two back-to-back because one I think will be pretty short, and then one is a question for everyone. First one from Azazir in the chat. Do you think a VFX background is good enough, or if some personal project more game-oriented are a must? Any thoughts about that, On?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question again? I cut out a little bit.
Yes. Is a VFX like a VFX work background good enough to apply for Riot, or is a personal project that is game oriented a must?
I can. So personally on my side, I think as long as you can show that you have good, strong foundational skill, whether it's through a VFX background, a VFX project, or an indie game project, as long as you can show those aspects in your work, I think either way works. Although I would say if you have more relevant game dev experience, I think that's definitely a plus also. But yeah, as long as you can show that you have good, strong animation knowledge, as long as you can show that you have like a strong identity in your animation, I think that's like the most important thing. And then the relevant game dev experience, that's like a good plus to what you already have as an animator.
Yeah, nice little cherry on top. Oh, go ahead, JT. Sorry.
I just want to go ahead and say, I believe they're talking for everybody else. I believe they're talking about cinematic VFX,
Yes.
as game VFX are very, very different. So just wanted to make that distinction.
Awesome. Thank you. That is a great qualification. I do think that language can get very conflicting. So thank you. VFX animation being like a VFX house like ILM or working for Marvel, where you're working often with like film plates and then more realistic stuff versus VFX, which is like explosions and magic. We have a question in chat here from Sir Wade FX. What's each of your most memorable experience at the studio so far?
There's many projects I can't talk about, but a lot of those are very cool. But I think for me, I mean, I like because I came at a time like entering the industry where everything was kind of like locked down with COVID. But it seems like there's like a really like cool just environment of people around here in Riot, and I think like they really enforce that a bunch. Like not enforce, encourage rather that a bunch of just like, oh hey, like there's a bunch of people on campus. There's like campus events and things like that, and yeah, like it really kind of like puts into reality the cool community of artists that we're all around, and it's like really neat to just go over to like somebody's desk and be like, oh, you're working on this thing, like what's all that about? So yeah, it's super awesome to see people. Also, I really like your YouTube videos, Sir Wade. Hello.
Oh wow. No, Wade.
For me, at least, I haven't been on campus, but this is a bit of a silly story. I was having my first Google Hangout with my mentor, and he opens it and he's on the move, and I'm like, "What's going on, AR?" He's like, "I made waffles," and I was like, "What?" I made waffles, and he switches his camera, and they're these beautiful shamrock-shaped waffles with like cream and strawberries, and I was like, "This company is amazing." And then like this week, once again, I'm having a Google Hangout meeting, and he's on the move, and he's like, "Elena," and I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, "There are dinosaurs," and I was like, "What?" And he changes his camera, and there are these animatronic dinosaurs like all over campus. So I think like the fact that Riot has that culture of having fun, showing films, and then also like limited overtime, at least from what I've heard, like they're very harsh on, well, not harsh, it's more like they're very like, don't do overtime, don't kill yourself. That's a mentality that's like very like, even for my last company, it was like, you can do a little overtime, it's fine. But here is like that prioritization of people that's so important, because I have a friend who's interning at Feature, and she's like, the animators are doing 14-hour days and 8 hours on Saturdays. And I'm like, oh. So I think like seeing how much Riot cares about its people, at least as an intern, has like really stood out to me. And then also the fact that they have animatronics on campus just around has also been cool.
Can I just say really quick to that point? I was just going into work one day on a Monday. I was kind of just a little tired, a little groggy. And I just see a freaking dinosaur like to my side. I'm like, okay, I'm still dreaming. This is wild.
Yeah, for me, it's similar to everybody else. There's a lot of like amazing experiences that I've had, especially being on campus as well. Um, but yeah, for me, one of the big ones, they have DDR on campus, and I am racking up the high scores right now, trying to improve my dance moves. But no, also similar to Elena, Anar was somebody who created like a really memorable first day for me. Where my manager as well, show he the first day I was just there's a bunch of stuff. I'm not going to get into all of it, but like I showed up on campus just to pick something up, and he was like, no, stay and come to your desk and hey, check it out, look, we got all the animators over here, just like super friendly. And then he was like, hey, got to go to the gym, see ya. And I was like, okay. And then I was just sitting there. I couldn't use my computer or anything yet, so I'm just sitting there on my phone. And then Anar kind of just walks up out of the blue, and he's like, hey. I'm like, what's up? He's like, new guy. I'm like, that's me. And we just started chatting for hours, had lunch, got to meet other animators. It was just a great time. And then later that week, he had like a birthday party outside of work. I got invited to that, got to meet even more like Riot devs and their friends outside of Riot and stuff. So that was really cool. So I just had like a crazy like first week while I was there. But yeah, it's more to, what everybody's saying. Like everybody, I've never been at a place where literally everybody's awesome. Like, and I know it sounds like it can't be true, but it's like, that's literally been my experience. And one of the really cool things that they do at Riot as well is one-on-ones, like Lena was talking about. You can have one-on-ones with anybody, and people are very, very social and willing to reach out and talk to you. So I really love that and cherish that at this studio. So yeah.
For me, I'd say my most memorable experience is not like one instance, but it's like I think it's like a collection of experience, because now that I'm on this side of the fence of development, because I used to also play Riot's games a lot, and now that I'm on this side of the fence, I think it's just really cool to just see all like the excitement and the buzz around the things that you work on, particularly with Valorant, because Deadlock just dropped episode 7. I'll play that, but it's just so exciting because now I get to see all of the stuff that's been in production and just seeing them out there, and people seeing it, people just generally being really excited about it. And so it's just really cool. And I also have a lot of friends who also play Valorant and League with me too, so it's almost like just seeing them being excited about the game and the things that you work on. It's almost like I'm working for them too, so it's awesome.
Also for me, when I play the Valorant as a Riot employee, we can like give a gift to like gun buddy. So when I play the Valorant, people say like, please give me the gun buddy. It's like, I will do my best in my game, kind of that. So that's kind of so funny thing as a Riot employee also. And then I'm big fan of the esports, like kind of that. So also we are doing the VCT in Master Tokyo, and then we're gonna have a champions in LA this year. So it's like, so I'm so happy, like, many people love the Valorant, and then watching the esports, like kind of big community, kind of that is very, like, it's Riot's big thing, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kailey, you're going to get a billion requests for gun buddies after this. I can't believe we said the words gun buddy on stream. That's it. That's it for us. I'll see you later. I think, Aharonit, do you have a favorite memory so far?
Sure. I mean, the dinosaurs are definitely startling and fun, but I think a pretty memorable start, because I started along with John in December, and I think on like the second week, our manager made sure we came to the like holiday party that was happening on campus. And I had been starting remote because I still lived in Orange County, just like an hour and a half drive with traffic, or more. And so I just like hadn't met anybody in person or been to the Riot campus, and then drove up here after work, and everything was like decked out with like beautiful lights, and they'd made an ice rink in the middle of the quad, and like free drinks and food, and it was like a winter wonderland transformation in the quad that was crazy, coming from my tiny little indie studio where we'd have a pizza party. And yeah, I just like met everybody in person for the first time, and it was like, here's this animator and this animator and this animator and this person and this person and this person. I was just like, whoa, entered a completely new world here. So that was a fun start to my time at Riot.
Oh, that is a great start. Moving right along. We're already at 7 o'clock, so I'm only gonna ask like a couple. Let's do like a lightning round, okay? So let's only have like 1 or 2 people answer every question. So if you answer one, give it a beat, give other folks a chance to answer. We'll do a lightning round for basically every other question that I see in the chat and that I have in the backlog here. So from Johnny Ringo, is it realistic to get a job in animation as someone who is self-taught versus someone who went to university for it?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Great. Next.
Got the skills, you're good.
Really. Just keep practicing and be persistent, and you'll get there. And always like to improve.
Yeah. Other than for the literally legal internship reasons, was anybody asked about their education when they applied for their job?
Nope.
Great.
I don't think so.
Yeah, me neither. All right, the casual Josh. Question: what would be the standard software to learn for 3D and 3D animation?
Maya.
Yeah. Maya.
Okay. From Two Steel, I'm creating an animation portfolio right now, but I'm not used to game animation workflow, so I've changed my blocking like 15 times already, and it's taking me a lot of time to finish it. I want to make sure everything is fine before polishing or doing anything else. Do y'all go through the same thing?
Ask for critique.
Elena asked for critique. Woo! That is a hot tip.
I want to find... Okay, cool. Sorry, there's a lot of words in this question.
Yeah.
Do you often redo your blocking like 15 times before you dive into polishing it?
Yes.
Yeah, probably. Honestly.
I go through a lot of very messy passes and get a lot of notes and then do a lot of changes and then test it in Engine and then make sure it's all okay and then polish. So that is normal.
One of the things that I do a lot, I kind of feel like it's like I'll add in like a lot of things. I'm like, okay, I need to delete a lot of like these extra actions. I don't have time to fit all these in. So I definitely feel that.
Yeah, and I do think it's something like even I know some of the seniors here and principals have mentioned that it doesn't really go away. I will say though that if you're working on something you've done a lot in the past, then you probably won't need to do as many blocking passes because you've already like solved it. You already like have a lot of those like thousands of micro decisions already like down packed. But otherwise, I think it's very normal.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd add is if you're finding that you have to do it over and over and over and over again, something's got to give. You got to change something about your approach. Ask somebody else. From Elena, great note. Take some reference, great note. Draw a couple doodles. Anything that like will snap you out of whatever is making you do the same thing over and over again. Possibly take a break. Just walk away from the computer for a while. Yes. Next question. I wonder, is layered animation approach good for game animation? And I wonder how many Riot animators are using a layered animation approach.
Can somebody break down layered real quick?
Layered animation means that you don't animate pose to pose where you're posing the whole body. I think a true layered approach is where you literally start with a single control, often the one that has the broadest movement, and you apply channel by channel translation XYZ, rotation XYZ, and then do that for every control in the body. I work in a layered approach.
Yeah, I work in a layered approach. I don't go channel, but Jesus Christ, I don't go channel by channel like RX, RY, like. But I also do like a kind of like a hybrid where, especially at Riot, where stepped is really important for our workflow, or I say Riot for on League on skins. Yeah, for me, I do stepped, and then when I get into spline is when I switch over to my tried and true bread and butter layered approach. And the way I do it is I do the cog, the hips, center of mass, and then the feet and knees first, and then I kind of radiate out from there. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's important to note that like everyone's workflow is different, and I don't think there's necessarily like the optimal workflow or like the worst workflow. I think you're sort of used to what you're used to, and I think something good to do is to try and like pick up new little bits and pieces of info from like other people's workflow that you think would be able to improve yours. Like, oh dang, like selection sets, maybe that's a good idea, right? So yeah, I think that yeah, for me personally, I do a lot of like the more like pose centric approach, especially in blocking. I don't really even like look at like individual controls until like more deep into polish when I'm just trying to like make sure like, okay, is there anything like wacky going on in the graph editor that's making this not feel clean, something like that. But I think yeah, that's I guess my advice, especially for like game centric animation, is to just make sure like clarity of poses is number one. I mean, especially for a league, like your character's like this big on the screen, so you're gonna dang make sure that you see him. So yeah.
All right, keeping on with the speed round. From Fire Lord Michelle, how many people ask you for a gun buddy whenever you play? I'm gonna just say, on behalf of all of us, every one of them. Next question. Does anybody use Blender?
I don't, but I think Blender is valid also, and I think it's a good way to sort of like get your feet wet with like, oh, do I like to use like, or do I like to do like 3D animation? I think that, yeah, it's definitely not as much like industry standard nowadays, but I mean, like I said before, I worked in Maya and then went to 3ds Max, and I had never really used 3ds Max prior to my job, so in my previous job rather, so. Yeah, I think that animation principles are sort of a foundation that can be applied to a lot of different programs. Yeah.
When do you call your animation test done?
Oh, Jesus.
Never.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that for animation tests, you're usually, I guess it depends on who you are or like where you are in your life. It sounds like for most of us who did an animation test, we were working full time, so it's probably going to be rare for you to get it to something that's fully polished. So I I think you just get to a point where either you get you get sick of it, you get burnt out, or you're like, you know what, this is good. I think this shows off my skills, and you can also add context when you submit it. So if it's not fully polished, I wouldn't say it's fully polished. Just tell them, hey, I got it to here. When I submitted mine, as I was saying, the second piece, the wind down, was way further from the original shot, and I just said that, like, hey, I didn't get to touch the wind down as much, and they were fine with that. So.
Yeah,
we're going with speed round. We're flying.
Let's go
We
speed.
flying
Let's
through.
do it.
What are some good practices when using NDA work when applying for jobs?
So I used NDA work, and I think just make sure it is actually password protected. And then the advice I got was that like consider the work you're showing and the work and who you're showing the work to. So I was scared to use this reel, but then my friend who works at Riot said that like, well, you're showing work from a small indie company and it hasn't been announced, so there's like no one who's going to be like, this animation, like we got it, this is great, we have this information. It's like, it's cool, but it's not anything anyone has attachments to, and you're showing it to Riot and they're not going to do anything. If it was the other way around, like showing NDA Riot work to maybe a small up and coming studio, I would like caution against a little bit more. But in general, I think there is a sense of respect for that in this industry. If you're working with good professionals, that like, this is NDA, I need to respect that. They're showing it to me, I'm not going to show it to anyone else. So I just made sure it was password protected and didn't stay online for too long.
Beautiful. And the last question of the night, before we close it out with some farewells, now that you know what you know about working at Riot, what would you do differently with your reel or test if anything?
Make a new reel. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. I think for me, there's like it was a big learning experience for me, like making my reel. For me, I did make basically a new reel for this specific opportunity, and kind of like made some new work for it as well. And I even took like old work that was in like a different style and tried to make it more in the style of League. But yeah, I think. Honestly, though, even though I said I would make a new reel, I probably wouldn't actually. I think the big thing is that it's a learning process and it's a journey. So I was really proud of my work at the time. When I look at it now, I'm like, oh God, I like cringe at every frame. But at the time, I was really proud of the work, and yeah. So be proud of your work.
Word. Anyone else?
I maybe
I'm
would
in
have
the same
tried.
boat.
Sorry.
Sorry. You go.
Yeah, I maybe also would have tried to create things that were more catered to League or MOBA if I had the time, but I was working as an animator and did not want to animate, and I kept trying to force myself to and just gave up and applied with what I had. So it's all down to your like circumstance, and you can always sort of give a bigger impression of who you are as an artist in a cover letter in your interview process.
John?
Yeah, no, I was just saying I'm kind of in the same boat where it's just like I think definitely like looking back, I'm like, oh man, maybe I could have done like this test differently. I think for the time, I felt pretty good about things. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I don't know. On the spot.
No press. No press. You don't have to want to change anything. You could be like, I was really happy with everything I did, and then that's fine.
It's pretty good with it, I guess. I don't know.
All right. Anyone else? All right. We love to hear it. Well, everyone, whopping, massive stream, so helpful. I wasn't calling them all out, but the chat let us know. Did you enjoy this? Was this helpful? How fresh was this knowledge from our freshest rats? How do you let us know? You type RATS in all caps in the chat. That's a rats in the chats. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Elena, Kailey, An, John, Aharonit, and JT for joining me today. What a fantastic stream. To close it out, if you do not mind people finding you online and possibly asking you more specific questions about your reel or about your experiences at Riot, or in general, you just want to share things with the world, feel free to shout that out. But if not, give one more little sign off, starting with whoever talks first.
I'll talk first. Okay. Yeah, I'm JC DeFonte. That's DAFONTE on Twitter and Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn. Just my name, John DeFonte. Yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. I will try and answer them as soon as I can. And yeah, you guys have been really cool and very nice. Thank you so much.
I can go next. JT, I don't want to be bothered on Twitter. I don't want to be bothered on social media. But if you just want to bug me for some reason, but now, do you, Lena, do you have my my social? It was,
I do. It's your Discord.
Yeah.
I can copy paste it to chat.
Cool.
Are you in
on...
our rat Discord as well, JT?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I don't. I believe my name's the same. So yeah, I'm in the Rat Discord. I was in there a little bit, like during that year spell for me as well. Not as much anymore, but yeah, you can hit me up in the Rat Discord. You can hit me up on my normal Discord DMs or whatever. All of it's fine. I'll talk to you, answer any of your questions, and help you out as best as I can. So.
Yeah, my Twitter handle. Sorry, lag in streaming. My Twitter handle is ahargoblarg, and I am happy to answer questions. I will put it in chat. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So me, I'm Kailey. So I'm doing animation streaming in Twitch, and also sometimes I'm playing the Valorant too. So if you guys want to play the Valorant with me or like having any question, so come visit my streaming. And then usually I'm speaking Korean there, but you guys say hi like I can speak English that time. So yeah, this is my streaming Twitch channel too.
I think I just tagged you in the chat, so if anybody wants to follow you, you've got some very cute emotes. Yeah, the links don't
Please
work,
subscribe
unfortunately.
me. Yeah. Okay. Subscribe my channel.
Yeah, and I'm not too active on social media, but once in a blue moon, if I am on Instagram, you can hit me up at Nisen94 on Instagram. I'm happy to answer any question that you have.
Beautiful.
Hi, Elena. My Instagram is, I do not have a Twitch account, but my Instagram is E.K.Serenko. And yeah, I post all kinds of little silly things over there once in a blue moon. So any questions, anything at all, excited to say hi.
Beautiful. And finally, my name is Lana Wyszynski. You can find me on Twitter primarily, but also Instagram, same name, at Latieni. That's Latienie. I am also the tweeter for the Rat Animators, which is linked above, at Rat Animators on Twitter and Twitch. And you can join our Discord community, discord.gg/v, little v, little q, big K, big U, little y, big F, tiny v. Or you can just go to our Twitter bio and click it from there. This is the Rat Stream. We try and do it once a month. We don't always make it, but please, if you want, you can follow us here. We love to see it. We often do demo reel review streams. That's probably 50% of the streams we do. So if you want to have your work reviewed by wonderful rats like these, please keep an eye out on our Twitter and on the Discord channel. And any of the new rats here, the fresh rats, if you are not in the Discord channel and want to be, please let me know, and please tag me and I can get you the correct rat role so people can hit you up there if they want to. And otherwise, everyone, what a fantastic stream. What a fantastic chat. Thank you everybody for your fantastic, I need a new word, for your questions. You asked us questions and we like them. You're all very nice and we love hanging out with you on Twitch. We will catch you next time. And in the meantime, rats.